If you own a stroller and you find the basket hard to get to, I have a project for you. A walk-in-the-park stroller bag snaps onto any stroller's handles, so it's easily accessible. It features 2 elasticized side pockets for bottles or sippy cups, a loop for your keyring or a pacifier, 2 front pockets for snacks and toys, and a large inner pocket for everything else. This tutorial was sponsored by allfreesewing.com. Start by cutting your fabric. I'm using a patterned fabric for lining and pockets and a solid fabric for the outer bag. We'll begin with the bag lining. Sew the 6 by 15 inch side panels to the 18 by 6 inch bottom panel, sewing 1 to each short end with right sides together. Sew with a 5/8 inch seam. Then press the seams open. Now we'll pin one of the large 18 by 15 inch rectangles to the strip we sewed. Line up the short side of the large rectangle with one of the outer strip segments. Right sides should be together. Pin. When you reach the seam joining the strips together, it's time to turn the strip and pin it along the long side of the main piece. When you reach the next seam, turn again and pin the remaining side strip to the other short side of the main piece. Sew the sides and bottom in place with a 1/4 inch seam. When you reach a corner, tug gently on the fabric diagonally. You want the corner to be free of pleats. Press open seams. Finally, add the other main piece by pinning it to the rest of the bag, right sides together, matching up the edges. Sew with a 5/8 inch seam. Press the seams open. Snip off the excess fabric at the corners, being careful not to cut your stitches. Now we'll work on the side panels. Find the 2 solid side pieces that measure 6 by 15 inches. Fold them in half so they measure 6 by 7.5 inches and press along the fold. Now we'll sew a seam a 1/2 inch below the fold to create a casing for the elastic. Change your machine setting to a basting stitch or the longest stitch available. Sew along the bottom raw edge of the side pocket pieces with a 1/4 inch basting stitch. Do not backstitch. Gently pull on the bottom thread to ruffle the fabric. Adjust the fabric so it fits the bottom of the side pocket panel. Pin in place, lining up the raw edges of both pieces. Now we'll add the elastic. Cut 6 inches of elastic for each pocket. Use a safety pin to thread it through the casing. Pin the sides of the pocket panel to the side panel. Pull the elastic taut so that the pocket panel fits the dimensions of the side panel. Pin the ends of the elastic to the sides of the pocket piece. Sew the sides and bottom of the pocket to the side panel with a 1/4 inch stitch, leaving the top open. Do this for both sides. Next we'll make the key loop. Fold the 2 by 8 inch pattern piece in half lengthwise so it is 1 inch wide. Sew along the raw edge with a 1/4 inch seam. Press the seam open. Turn the tube right side out. You might find it helpful to use tweezers. Center the seam and press. Tuck in the raw edges of one end a 1/4 inch. Don't worry about the other end, it won't show. Top stitch shut with a 1/8 inch seam and continue top stitching around the edge of the tube. Next we'll work on the front piece and pocket. Take the remaining patterned rectangle that measures 18 by 15 inches and fold it in half so it measures 18 by 7.5 inches. Press the fold. Cut a piece of bias tape to 18 inches and press if needed. Line up the raw edge of the key loop piece with the top of the pocket piece's fold. Place it about 4 inches in from the left edge. Open the bias tape and pin it along the folded edge of the pocket piece. Sew the bias tape in place, encasing the raw end of the key loop. Now we can add the pocket to the main piece. Lay it on top of a solid 18 by 15 inch rectangle and sew along the sides and bottom, leaving the top open. Then divide the pocket by sewing a seam directly up the center of the pocket. Assemble the outer bag as you did the lining. Pin the side pieces to the short ends of the bottom piece and sew with a 5/8 inch seam. Make sure that you're sewing along the bottom of the pockets. Press the seams open. Pin the side and bottom strip piece to the front bag piece. Sew with a 5/8 inch seam. Then sew the remaining 15 by 18 inch rectangle to the bag. Press open the seams. Now we'll make the snap tabs. Fold the two 4 by 18 inch rectangles in half, right sides together, so that they are 9 by 4 inches. Press. Sew around the edges with a 1/4 inch seam, leaving the unfolded short end open for turning. Turn right side out and press. Pin the snap tabs to the top center of the outer side panels. Rather than lining the strap end up with the top of the bag, extend them about 1.5 inches past the bag. This will allow us to sew them more securely later. Now we can finish the bag. With the lining of the bag inside out, slide the outer bag inside of it. Right sides should be together. Line up the side seams of the bag and pin all the way around. Sew with a 5/8 inch seam, leaving a 10 inch hole for turning. Press open the seams. Turn right side out. Press the top seam. Fold in the edges of the hole and press those as well. Top stitch the hole shut with a 1/8 inch seam and continue top stitching all the way around the bag. To strengthen the snap tabs, sew a rectangle with an X a 1/4 inch away from the top seam. Finally, attach 2 heavy-duty snaps to each of the tabs and 1 to the key loop as well. A walk-in-the-park stroller bag makes outing so much easier. This tutorial was sponsored by allfreesewing.com. For written instructions, please visit my website, MadeByMarzipan.com.